Glad you're here. Thank you. President Trump is speaking with reporters outside the White House as we were rolling cameras before headed to Texas, warning once again that he's ready to act on his own if lawmakers won't agree to a deal to provide funding for a border wall with Mexico. Watch.
I have the absolute right to declare a national emergency. The lawyers have so advised me. I'm not prepared to do that yet, but if I have to, I will. I have no doubt about it, I will. So we're either going to have a win, make a compromise, because I think a compromise is a win for everybody, or I will declare a national emergency.
Negotiations not appearing to make any progress, though, in the past 24 hours. Yesterday, Democrats came out of a White House meeting with the president and Republican leaders and accused the president of storming out.
We saw a temper tantrum because he couldn't get his way, and he just walked out of the meeting. He sort of slammed the table, and when Leader Pelosi said she didn't agree with the wall, he just walked out and said, "We have nothing to discuss." This was really, really unfortunate, and in my judgment, somewhat unbecoming of a presidency.
And around we go. The president denied Senator Schumer's account, saying they are the ones unwilling to negotiate.
I didn't pound on tables. I didn't raise my voice. That was a lie. I very calmly said, if you're not going to give us strong borders, bye-bye, and I left.
And then he tweeted the same thing. Yeah. And right now, Vice President Mike Pence wrapped up a meeting with members of Congress as talks continue among lawmakers trying to make that deal. Peter Ducey, live amongst all the melee on Capitol Hill. Peter?
Harris, I'm told that Jared Kushner, the senior White House advisor, has reached out to at least one Democratic senator, Joe Manchin from West Virginia, and the two talked immigration but never got into any kind of specifics about what kind of a deal Manchin might be able to handle, if any. Kushner was also at a meeting with a group of moderate Republicans last night hosted by Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, where I'm told the discussion included a possible plan to trade border wall money for a DACA fix to let illegals brought to the country as kids stay. Right now, the border wall number is $5.7 billion. If Democrats want to offer less than that, maybe it could be a small-scale DACA fix. If Democrats can stomach more, then maybe it could be a large-scale DACA fix.
There's a process maybe that will pay dividends in making sure the president gets his border security funding and can add some things to the mix that would draw some bipartisan support. It's in its infant stages, no commitment by anybody.
Just now on the Senate floor, two Democratic senators from Maryland, home to tens of thousands of shutdown-affected workers, tried to introduce bills to reopen the government that have already passed the House, but they were shut down by the Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
The last thing we need to do right now is to trade pointless, absolutely pointless show votes back and forth across the aisle.
I'm extremely disappointed. I can assure you, the Majority Leader, this is not a showboat issue with 800,000 federal workers being denied their paycheck.
And the morning after calling President Trump petulant, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi stepped up to a podium to taunt Republican colleagues.
So we're just saying to them, take yes for an answer. This is what you have proposed. Why are you rejecting it at the expense of the health, safety, and well-being of the American people? Do you take an oath to the Constitution or an oath to Donald Trump?
Mitch McConnell was clear on the floor of the Senate today. He is not going to bring forward any kind of a spending bill unless he knows for sure that President Trump would sign it. So that means there is no instant quick fix to the shutdown on the table today. Harris.
But we already know kind of what the president said he would sign. It's got to have wall funding in it. Okay. Peter Ducey, thank you. You ever feel like you're just going around the yard just chasing stuff without the lawnmower? It's like, how am I going to cut this grass? I don't know, Bob. You need a lawnmower. Like, I kind of feel like they're not even getting any closer.
Yeah, but these kind of negotiations have a momentum, right? If you had asked me 2 or 3 weeks ago, I thought this would be a total loser for President Trump. Because when he had that meeting with Pelosi and Schumer, he said, I'm going to own the shutdown. I'm never going to blame you for it. It's going to be on me because I'm happy to do it. And I said, well, there he goes. And what he's done instead, by staying with the issue and making sure that he planted himself on an issue that's a real issue. There is, to anybody who's objectively looking at it, there are crisis conditions down at the border. You want to say they're a national emergency, however you want to describe them. There's a big problem down there. He's highlighting it, and he's got his opposition on defense. So he's in the game, and he's got a chance to win, which I frankly didn't think a couple of weeks ago he did.
So this idea of executive fiat to do something, and we know that he's used it, I think, 2 or 3 other times already in his presidency. I don't know if people realize that, but he has, not on issues having to do with the border. And former President Obama used it several times as well. We know one of them had to do with immigration. It was DACA.
Right.
So where do we stand with the legality of that? How would that get challenged in the courts if you were to do something by executive order?
So I think it's a terrible way to run the government. It's an unconstitutional way to run the government. They're supposed to have, Congress is supposed to pass the laws. The president is supposed to execute the laws.
Congress seems to be constipated on this issue right now. So if they can't get anything done, look, I'm just going to talk about facts here. What does the president do?
Well, I hope he doesn't declare the emergency, because I think politically right now the momentum's on his side. The second he declares an emergency, the script is going to flip from what's going on at the border to whether he's done something illegal and unconstitutional.
To executive overreach. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That won't be the worst thing in the long run if Congress finally takes back some of that power. But to your point about if Congress acted, and, you know, let's say we took a pause here and they passed legislation and addressed whatever is creating these crisis conditions, whatever the uncertainty is, if they actually address that in 6 months, what would happen? I think you would see the crisis abate.
Right.
It's like, you know,
but I don't know that they
deal with the problem.
I don't know that everyone wants the crisis to abate, because there are those who say there is no crisis, that it's manufactured. So certainly those people don't want the crisis to debate. And then I think there's people who like this. Of course, we've said this many times as a political issue. But I would ask you on a technicality, because we've kind of talked about 2 different things here. Is there an opportunity for an executive order that is different from declaring a national emergency? Are these the same things? I mean, what are all the options that are available?
He could issue an executive order without declaring an emergency, but he can't.
But there would be no money.
He can't repurpose funds without declaring an emergency.
So the only way to get money is a national emergency.
Yeah, and I should point out, the problem here is Congress, we do this government by emergency so much that Congress actually enacted a statute in 1976, the National Emergency Act. But the presumption in the statute was if the president declared an emergency, the Congress could overrule it by a joint resolution. And what happened was in 1983, the Supreme Court threw out the legislative veto. So what's left is the president declaring the emergency with no check on the president's ability to do that, because the one they wrote into the statute has been voided by the court.
Katie?
Well, I think it's important to go back to what is actually on the table. You're asking about what's being negotiated, what can the president do, what can Congress do. Nancy Pelosi held her press conference this morning, and she said that DACA hasn't even been discussed. And while at the same time saying it hasn't been put on the table by Democrats, she admitted that it's a very popular thing, both by Democrats and Republicans to support. And the president has done that and has offered overwhelming numbers of DACA recipients and their parents to receive that kind of amnesty in exchange for some kind of border security.
But Republicans stepped on that.
Correct. And the other thing, too, I think that's important, is it's been portrayed that the president is only asking for a wall, that this is the only solution that he thinks he can come up with. This is a letter from last week from the Office of Budget and Management, and it includes $500 million for new immigration judges to process asylum claims, which you think Democrats would want. Law enforcement personnel, $4.2 billion for 52,000 new detention beds in these ICE centers so they can properly and humanely process these people, humanitarian aid. And the most important thing, because you've seen Democrats say, we're all about new technology, we're about border security. Well, in this letter, they offer $675 million for additional technology.
Letter from who?
From the Office of Budget and Management, from the administration to the Senate, saying, look, The bill that's on the table in terms of appropriations, the spending bill doesn't include these things. These are what we want. 3 of these major things Democrats have asked for, and we're putting it on the table in addition to
you've got technology and union employees.
Yeah.
And that's what Democrats have been clamoring for the entire time. So, if hardcore immigration activists and conservative hardliners are worried that the president has folded, he's capitulated on a lot of this stuff. And, he's talked about...
One word he hasn't. And I had Democrats and Republicans on Overtime say it yesterday. The one word is the wall. And
no,
you'll hear him
he's talked about a border fence.
Let me finish. He'll say the wall, and then he'll say other things. We are actually at a point of immaturity, it would seem, in this conversation, where you can't even say that 4-letter word, no matter what else you put behind it or in front of it. So the question is, do you completely take it out? Does that hurt him with his base if he completely takes that word out and then supplants it with other things? I'm just trying to get us to go forward. I don't know, Katie, what do you think?
He's taken the word out quite a bit. I mean, when you hear him out there talking on the line.
Not quite a bit, 100%.
When you talk about Senator Shelley Moore Capito was on a little while ago and saying that if you looked in committee in June, that there were Democrats in the Senate who voted yes for these very things, for border funding, border security funding, whatever it is. But they voted yes, where Nancy Pelosi said that they would not over in the House. Or Chuck
so
Schumer
what I'm
said
doing is calling the Democrats bluff.
Yeah,
Andy, that's what we're doing. We're saying if you take out that 4-letter word, wall, call their bluff and see if that's not the thing.
Yeah, although I must say, I mean, the semantics of this, I think people know that walls make sense. And what the problem with the Democrats' position is they've taken the position that there's a morality about the wall.
They don't believe that.
Of course they don't.
They're not reacting to the wall. They're not reacting to the problem, which means they're not reacting logically. They're reacting to the president. So what I would challenge Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, for a moment, take the president out of it. Pretend that there is some blank person who is president and it's not Donald Trump. And just be concerned with the actual issues, the people at the border, those most affected, talk to legislators in border states, and then come up with a solution. Forget the president for just a second and see if you react differently. I think the reaction would be diametrically different.
Melissa, let's take the couch to D.C.
Okay. I love that idea.
I'm ready.
We'll get people on there and we'll solve it.
Jetpacks. We'll try. Yes.